everyone, welcome back to the Doctrine, Dogma, and Davide podcast. My name is Davide, and today I'd like to finish out my series on Vatican II by talking a little bit about Sedevacantism, and specifically why I think that Sedevacantism is an untenable position. Now, I've talked a little bit about Sedevacantism in my previous videos, but if you haven't seen those or just need a refresher, Sedevacantism is the belief that there is currently no valid pope. The word sedevacant literally means empty chair. A sedevacant is simply what happens when a pope dies or resigns and a new pope must be selected to take his place to continue to govern and lead the church. What most Sedevacantists believe is that there has been no pope since the death of Pope Pius XII in 1958. Now, there are a lot of different sects and groups of Sedevacantists with all sorts of different beliefs. There are some who don't think that Pius XII was a valid pope either. There are others who think that John XXIII was a valid pope, but that Paul VI wasn't. But I'm going to focus mainly on the most common position, that the Sedevacant began with John XXIII, whom they allege is a heretical anti-pope. And the central argument they make is that because the pope is protected by the dogma of infallibility from formally teaching heresy, John XXIII and Paul VI cannot be true popes because they formally promulgated heresy at the Second Vatican Council. To put it simply, a pope cannot formally teach heresy. The Vatican II popes formally taught heresy, therefore they cannot be true popes. Now, in my previous videos, I've already addressed most of the accusations of heresy against Vatican II and why those accusations ultimately don't hold up. But to me, there's a much more fundamental problem with the Sedevacantist position, and that is the fact that if Pius XII was the last valid pope, then there is no means by which a new pope could be appointed, because all the cardinal electors who had been appointed by the time of Pius XII's death are all gone, so there can never be another valid pope. The line of Peter is dead. And this contradicts the Church's dogmatic teaching on the perpetual primacy of the line of Peter. The First Vatican Council proclaimed in Chapter 2 of Pastor Eternus on the perpetuity of the primacy of Blessed Peter, it said, quote, "That which the Prince of Shepherds and the great Shepherd of the sheep, Jesus Christ our Lord, established in the person of the Blessed Apostle Peter to secure the perpetual welfare and lasting good of the Church, must by the same institution necessarily remain unceasingly in the Church, which, being founded upon the rock, will stand firm to the end of the world." It goes on to state, quote, "If any then should deny that it is by the institution of Christ the Lord and by divine right that Blessed Peter should have a perpetual line of successors in the primacy over the universal church, or that the Roman pontiff is the successor of Blessed Peter in this primacy, let him be anathema." So Vatican I explicitly defined that the line of Peter would continue perpetually until the world ends. Therefore, any conclusion that the line of Peter has been extinguished must be false. Now, there are a few responses that some Sedevacantists will try to make to resolve this problem, and none of them really work. The first is that we are currently in the end times, and so the promise of permanence guaranteed to the line of Peter has already been fulfilled, because the death of Pius XII was the beginning of the end times, so the papacy has already persisted to the end of the world, and there will never be another pope. While it's possible that we may be living through the prophecies foretelling the end of days and the second coming of Christ, we can't know for sure until Christ comes again. We can never know with perfect certainty exactly when the end is coming, but either way, even if we are living through the end times, the end of the world still has not come yet, because Christ has not yet returned in glory. The world has not come to an end. Even if the end is nigh, it's still not now. The world continues apace, and thus the See of Peter must persist. Now, there are others who point out that there are always going to be some times when there is not a pope, such as between the death of the last pope and the election of the new pope. In the 13th century, there was a sedevacant lasting almost 3 years. So if the chair of Peter can be vacant for 3 years without violating the perpetual nature of the papacy, what's to stop it from being vacant for 30 years or 300 years? This is just an unusually long Sedevacant, and if you can have a short Sedevacant, you can have a long one, right? While it's true that there's no specific maximum time that a given sedevacant can last, there must always be a means by which the next pope can be elected. So while you could theoretically have a sedevacant that is unusually long, it could never be rendered permanent by the death of the last eligible elector, because until the world ends, Peter must continue to have a direct line of successors. Now, in response, some will point to the Council of Constance to demonstrate that even if all the valid cardinals are dead, a new pope could still be elected by an ecumenical council and the succession of Peter could continue. However, this misunderstands both the actual events of the Council of Constance and the very nature of papal succession. Let me explain. So the cardinals do not inherently in and of themselves have the right or authority to appoint or select the next pope. They are creatures of canon law, not divine law. Their power to elect the pope is entirely dependent upon the pope himself. It is the pope who has the sole authority to dictate how his successor is to be chosen. He has the right to dictate which cardinals are to be valid electors, what procedures they must follow, how many votes are necessary for election, or he can even cut the cardinals out completely, as he did at the Council of Constance. In this way, the papacy succeeds from pope to pope by the pope's own authority. If an outside authority ever intervened and appointed a new pope without the authority of the previous pope, then the continuity would be broken. Fortunately, that's not what happened at the Council of Constance. The council was called to resolve what was known as the Great Western Schism. At this time, there were 3 claimants to the papacy. There were 2 anti-popes in Pisa and Avignon, while the true pope resided in Rome. The council was called to resolve the confusion. The council deposed the 2 anti-popes from Pisa and Avignon, while the legitimate pope, Pope Gregory XII, agreed to resign on the condition that the council recognized that it is convened under his authority, and then gave the council the authority to select his successor, thus preserving the direct and continuous succession from Gregory XII to Martin V. Pius XII gave no council any such authority. His instructions were clear. His successor was to be elected by his cardinals, and they selected John the 23rd. Pope John the 23rd was appointed to be the successor of Peter by the authority of Pius XII, and all of the cardinals accepted him as the legitimate pope. The continuous succession of the See of Peter can never be broken. And this, to me, is the insurmountable obstacle to the claims of the Sedevacantists that makes their claims completely untenable. Ultimately, the line of Peter can never be fully extinguished. It can never be broken. It can never be interrupted. It must always be preserved intact, one pope to the next. And so ultimately, while Sedevacantists can bicker and moan and gnash their teeth about the decrees of the Second Vatican Council or the circumstances of the election of John the 23rd or a great many other ancillary topics, there is no getting around the fact that there must always be a successor to the See of Peter until the end of days. And so, no matter what, no explanation for what happened at Vatican II, no explanation surrounding the election of John the 23rd, no explanation can include the conclusion that the line of Peter is broken and still claim to be Catholic. But with that, that concludes both this video and I think my series on Vatican II. I might still do some other videos if additional topics come up or I feel prompted to respond to this, that, or the other. But I hope that this series and this video were spiritually fruitful for you. If it was, be sure to like, comment, do whatever it is the people of the internet do, and I will see you all next time. God bless you.